Goedenavond, dames en heren. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Spaarvarkens.be, we are very pleased to have this webinar tonight about Orange Belgium, or Orange Belgium, and the offer that is launched on Orange Belgium by Orange, which is now already a majority shareholder in Orange Belgium. In the call, we will be having people of Polygon and Deminor. So for Polygon, we are going to hear Nicolas Dautigny, who joins us from London, as well as Santos Palacios. For Deminor, we have Pierre-Alexis Léonard and Guillaume Danois. And for Spaarvarkens.be, it will be myself, Pascal Paepen, and also my colleague Stefan Willems. And perhaps later on, we will be hearing Jan Rijns. We will be mainly asking the questions. There can be a Q&A after the presentation, but unfortunately, from a legal perspective, Polygon will probably not be allowed to answer questions. No problem, the questions could be answered by the people joining from Deminor, and perhaps also me and my colleagues Stefan and Jan. We will be having this presentation. We will give you our views. However, please be informed that every investor and everyone should have his own view, his own opinion, using the information which you may get from this call or information you may get from the prospectus or from other people providing information. So you're always responsible for your own decisions. And I think investors know this, of course. Today's call will be about Orange Belgium. I think that especially everyone in Belgium knows Orange Belgium. I know it from the mid-90s, although we still hadn't Orange Belgium at that time. But there was this great businessman, Jean Cordier, and he was also the head of Telindus. And he said that he was going to set up a second mobile operator in Belgium. At the time, we only had Proximus, and Proximus was at that time the subsidiary, the mobile subsidiary of Belgacom, which still had the monopoly in our country and also in mobile telecom. And Jean Cordier, together with France Telecom, succeeded in getting this second mobile operator operational at the end of the 90s. Soon afterwards, the company was launched on the stock exchange and was pretty successful there as well. Originally, Orange Belgium was called Mobistar, and Mobistar is probably the brand name which is still known by quite a lot of Belgian people that are customer of Orange Belgium. We like Orange Belgium. As a matter of fact, about 3 or 3.5 years ago, I became a customer of Orange Belgium, and I loved their new strategy, which was going for triple play, whereby they didn't only offer their customers mobile telecom, but also internet, for instance, and access to the cable so that you could watch television. All you need is love is one of the sentences used to promote this product. Now, this is a picture taken about 3 years ago. I was at the Belgian Business Channel at that time. That was Canal Z or Canal Z, and in a program called Buy and Sell. And I said I would love to buy the stock of Orange Belgium. And so I did, and I told the watchers of this business channel why people could do so. I said I was really persuaded that Orange Belgium was going to do great in Belgium, and that a lot of customers were joining, customers coming from Telenet and from Proximus. And indeed, that's what happened. And right now in Belgium, Orange Belgium is still very popular, and more customers are joining from Proximus and from Telenet to this company. Orange Belgium had a great year, and more people are working from home and so on, and really relying on a telecom provider just like Orange Belgium. Now, the reason why we are here, of course, tonight is that there has been an offer launched on Orange Belgium. In the beginning, France Telecom was a majority shareholder, and now the successor of this France Telecom, Orange, is still a majority shareholder. And as you will probably have read in the press, Orange wants to pay 22 euros per share of Orange Belgium. Wants to take over control and makes an offer on all the shares which right now are still available and which are distributed amongst the public. Now, we also read in newspapers that not everyone was pleased with the price of those shares. Spaarvarkens.be is not really pleased. We think that the price is not really representing the opportunities and potential of Orange Belgium. And we have other investors that are not pleased as well. And one of those investors is number 2 investor after Orange, and that is Polygon. And we have Nicholas from Polygon here with us tonight. Nicholas, the first thing I would like to ask you is, what is Polygon exactly? We read that you have a considerable stake in Orange Belgium, but I must say that when we read the Belgian press, that when we are talking about Polygon, people mention, but Polygon is a hedge fund. And Nicholas, unfortunately, although I'm sure Polygon is a great company, hedge funds in general have a negative connotation, and that has been for years. So please explain us, what is Polygon exactly, Nicholas?
Thank you, Pascal. I'm sorry, I seem to be having some connectivity issues, so I might not be able to have the camera working at all times, but I'll keep on trying.
No problem. If it's better, you can turn the camera off, of course, Nicholas. Yeah, let's call ourselves by the first names. Let's make it not too formal. We've never seen each other before, so we don't really know each other, but I suggest that we just call first names to everyone in this call.
With pleasure. So, Pascal, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to participate in this webinar. It's a pleasure to be with you and all participants tonight. Before I answer your first question, please allow us a statement before we start. The views that we are to express on this call, my colleague Santos and me, are Polygon views, and only that. And secondly, none of what we're to say constitutes an investment advice in any shape or form. So Orange Belgium shareholders must rely on their own work, advisors, and research in order to decide and independently of Polygon whether to tender out their shares. Now, with this out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about Polygon. So Polygon was founded in 2002 in London, and the fund we are managing and which holds the Orange Belgium position is a vehicle dedicated to investing in the shares of European equities which encounter a special situation or event at one point in their existence, such as a takeover, a merger, a spin-off, a regulatory change. There's many types of events. And it's because often such events become the primary catalyst in the near to medium term for the company's share price. So we do an extensive amount of due diligence for investing, both from a fundamental
and unfortunately, there's connection problems, but you're back.
I'm back. Okay. You know, there's more than 10,000 hedge funds worldwide. Some estimates say even up to 15,000, which together manage above $3 trillion in many different strategies. So I'm afraid it would be very difficult for me to comment as to each individual fund or a generalization. But what I can tell you about us is that the very vast majority of our positions are long positions. We buy companies with a blended average duration in our portfolio of between 6 months and 3 years, depending on the sub-strategy. Although occasionally we find something so compelling that we get involved for far longer, and that's the case here. So we have been shareholders of Orange Belgium for over 5 years, and we view ourselves as responsible shareholders who exercise our voting rights wherever possible, and we also include ESG metrics as part of our assessment process.
Good. Nicolas, regarding Orange Belgium, when did you get involved and why did you get involved in Orange Belgium?
Yeah, of course. Very fair question. So we first invested in a company in 2015. Our primary interest was the cable wholesale access tariff reform that had been instigated by the Belgian regulator and which was aimed at fostering more competition in the Belgian telecommunications market, which is one of, if not the most expensive in Europe. And we felt, after doing our work, that Orange Belgium was positioned to benefit the most from this reform, which, by the way, finally came out in June last year, 2020. By the way, to get back to your first question, actually, we're aware that a frequent criticism laid at the doors of hedge funds is to be short-term opportunists. But I would surmise that an uninterrupted commitment to a company of more than 5 years clearly demonstrates that Polygon does not fit that description. Pascal, I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I didn't put my microphone on. So it's very interesting to hear that. What we usually hear about hedge funds is indeed that they switch on a regular basis and they only look short term. Now you have been holding the stake for a pretty long time. And you just told me that you got involved in 2015. So that is amazing. Also the fact that you are holding, I believe, 5.29%. That's quite a lot. You just told us that you have always been exercising the rights, so the voting rights and so on. But with such a stake, Nicolas, I would presume that you would go for a seat on the board at the company, or that you would become a bit an activist, or at least suggest good ideas to the company. Why did you never get a seat on the board?
Okay, fair enough. First, let me tell you that we don't see ourselves as activists. Rather, we would say we are active investors. This means that we regularly engage with management of the companies we invest in, and we exchange views with them, but mostly privately. When we sit on the board of a publicly listed companies, come a number of restrictions, in particular access to MNPI, material non-public information. And this is not desirable from the perspective of how we like to manage our fund. Let me give you an example. If we feel that at some point a company we own is being unfairly punished by the market, we want to be able to use this opportunity to add to our position. If we sat on the board, that would not be possible. So in the case of Orange Belgium, over the past 5 and a bit years, we have met with top management, CEO, CFO, between 25 and 30 times. We have seen now 3 different CEOs and I think 2 or 3 CFOs. And we've always enjoyed a very cordial relationship with them. And when Orange SA announced their intention to launch an offer at 22 per share in early December, we immediately relayed our concerns to the board of Orange Belgium. And if you remember, we did that very publicly. But despite reiterating this invitation several times, the board has never manifested itself to us. We also made it clear to Orange SA that we would be open to discussion with them, and again, to no avail. So we felt in this instance that they left us with no other option but take the arguments to the market and explain why we felt that 22 euros per share was derisory. I hope that answers your questions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Nicholas, you already told that you got involved in 2015 for the first time. You're still involved right now. You said that the intention was or the reason why you got involved was when you heard that there was going to be more competition in the cables, so that eventually, hopefully, in Belgium, telecom will become a bit cheaper. Now, if I remember well, it's about 2.5 years ago that it was finally a bit more progress in this situation, and indeed there is a bit more competition, and that's good. It was also beneficial for Orange Belgium, of course, because it had to pay quite a lot to Telenet, and since then the cost for Orange Belgium has decreased, so that is a very good thing. But I have worked myself in London for 12 years in the London city, and 5 years is quite a long time. So if you have been involved in this investment for such a long time already, or even longer, can this investment then be seen as a success? Because you also told in the beginning, well, some investments, they only take like half a year. Now you have been in this for 5 years already, or even a bit longer. It must have been quite a disappointment then, Orange Belgium, or the investment in Orange Belgium, no?
Well, I mean, you know, Pascal, and as you said, you worked in the city. It's not unusual for the market to not realize the value of a company. And by the way, that's good for us, because that's where we like to come in. Now, before I answer more fully your question, I think it's also important for your participants tonight to know that each member of our team has a personal investment in the fund. So we're investing our own money. And I think that is a very strong incentive to not get things wrong. Now, in the case of Orange Belgium, one has to realize that it's a company that still has fairly modest market cap, around 1.4 billion euro, less than 50% free float. It's not in major indices. And these factors can explain why its true potential can remain undiscovered for longer than one would think, and of course one would hope. But we're patient. I think what's important here is that Orange SA fails to reach the 95.3% threshold that would allow them to squeeze out, i.e. expropriate minorities, acquire 100% of the company and delist it. And even if they don't get to 95.3%, and with 5.29%, they can't, I think we have to all be vigilant about the fact that they may not try and circumvent that obstacle and still apply for delisting. Because what we believe here is that what we see is Orange trying to compel shareholders dissatisfied with the price, like we are, and compel them into tendering. So it may take a bit longer, for the value to be realized. But if the company remains listed, shareholders who share our analysis, should in the end be able to benefit from the company's strategy, growth, and asset value, namely the towers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll continue about that in a while, and perhaps also about potential scenarios that we may be having. We can discuss that with Deminor as well, I suggest. Nicholas, when at the beginning of December it was already it must have been around around the 6th of December, I think,
Second.
which is a famous date here in Belgium. That's Saint Nicholas, by the way. When Orange announced that it was interested to buy Orange Belgium, its Belgian subsidiary, did this come as a surprise to you and Polygon?
No, not really. I mean, Orange SA is not a financial player. It's an industrial owner of 53% of Orange Belgium. So there was always a number of objective reasons why one day or the other they would eventually want to own 100% of the company, and we understand that. What came as a surprise, I would say, was the price that they were prepared to offer, because we feel they were trying to take advantage of COVID and also the concerns about a fourth mobile operator being allowed in Belgium. I mean, if you remember, so the date of the announcement was the 2nd of December, actually. And on close of the day before, the Orange Belgium share was down still 22% year to date. We believe that the company has been unfairly penalized in the COVID sell-off, and this despite having demonstrated its resilience in such extraordinary circumstances. So in our opinion, Orange SA are trying to take advantage of this unjustifiably low valuation to offer a premium that, I'll admit, optically it's attractive, 36% premium versus the last price, but which in our opinion completely fails to reflect the true value of the company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so opportunistically, they want to buy the company at a very low price, taking into account that prices of shares in general dropped quite a lot last year. We've seen other takeovers where a party tried to take advantage of the situation and tried to buy a company very cheaply. That wasn't always easy, and probably this file isn't going to be easy either. Now, the question I would like to ask you, Nicholas, giving everything what happened over the last couple of days and weeks and so on, I think I can still hear that you or Polygon is still not happy with this, and that you were not, and you are not going to sell at 22 euros.
I think we've said it very clearly in our press releases, Pascal. Yes, I mean, at this point, we have no intention of selling our shares into an offer at 22 euros per share.
There is no doubt about that. I think that I could hand over to my colleague, Stefan, who you will also see there on the screen, who is ready to ask you some questions as well, Nicholas. So we'll continue with Stefan now.
Thank you very much for your answers until now, Nicholas. I have some questions. Yeah, for the people who don't know me, my name is Stefan Willems. I'm actually a financial stock analyst that's focused on Belgium mid caps and small caps. I still have some questions concerning the Totem deal. So Orange says it will combine its mobile towers in another division called Totem. And according to Orange and the Degroof Peterkam, we should therefore not take into account the valuation of the towers. And I would like to know the opinion of Polygon in this matter.
Well, I will mirror your move, and I will pass the floor to my colleague Santos to answer your questions.
I think that Santos perhaps has some connection problems.
He's going to come here.
Sorry,
I see
then come here and explain to you our point of view. Good evening to everyone.
Welcome, Santos.
So the first thing is that what Orange says is that it does not consider at this point to integrate the Belgian towers into them or to sell the towers to a third party. This in itself does not change, in our view, the inherent value of these assets, whether they decide to sell or contribute it or not to Totem. Orange Belgium has just over 3,000 mobile sites in the country. Locations have value, as we're seeing all over Europe, with the telecom companies selling these assets to infrastructure investors, at multiples between 15 to 20 times EV to EBITDA. They also name the network sharing agreement with customers, and they say that this will crystallize some of that value already. Sure, that's the case. It will not crystallize all of it, though. And we have seen this all over Europe. So Vodafone just did the IPO of its towers vehicle, Vantage Towers. And this vehicle includes, as a key asset of the company, the towers in Spain, for example. Those towers are in a network sharing agreement with, guess who? Orange. And Orange itself has announced that they will include their Spanish mobile towers in Totem. And these are in a network sharing agreement with Vodafone. So it may mean that they're worth a little bit less because they're in a network sharing agreement, but it definitely does not mean that they're worth zero, as they are implying.
It kind of makes me think about the purchase of Electrabel by Suez NG, which is a utility company in Belgium. It was a few years ago. And first, the buyer actually said that Electrabel was not worth that much, as Electrabel was forced to close its nuclear plants very soon. But after the takeover, Belgian laws changed, and Electrabel was actually allowed to operate its nuclear plants for a much longer time, making the takeover actually a very cheap deal for the French buyer. So my question would be, could we actually see something similar here, that Belgium may change its legislation about mobile towers so that a spin-off could be possible in the future?
Stefan, we think it's very pertinent to point out this precedent. As Santos was just mentioning, and as I'm sure you've all noticed, in their offer prospectus, Orange SA are saying that they do not envisage to sell the towers or contribute them to Totem. It's not as if they're making really a firm commitment over the long term not to. Mm-hmm. So as you're inferring, in 6, 12, 18 months, they could completely change their mind. And what? We would have sold them the towers at 5 times EV/EBITDA, which is what they're bidding for the business, when basically comparables are trading 15 to 20 times. That would make no sense. But yes, the answer is they could change their mind.
Mm-hmm. I also got some questions from readers, and they actually told me, well, Stefan, you know, Orange has actually a majority stake, actually. So if they do not want to actually increase the price, or it's actually up to them in the end, they can do whatever they want. We're just small investors. Do you agree with that statement?
No, I do not. It's correct that they are the controlling shareholder, but they're only the controlling and majority shareholder. It does not mean that they can do the company as they wish. But the board has a duty to look after the interest of the entire company itself, and at the very least, all its shareholders, not just the majority shareholder. So if Orange SA want to do whatever they want with Orange Belgium, they need to own 100% of it. And the way to get there is to offer a fair price.
Mm-hmm. And normally you have actually, in a company, you have the independent members of a board who also need to protect, for example, the interest of the small minority shareholders. And when I'm reading the corporate website of Orange Belgium, I see that they really say themselves that they really respect corporate governance, so also the protection of the small investors. But actually, until now, we didn't heard a lot about the independent members of the board, which is kind of strange. Why haven't we heard about? I think they also agree with the price of 22 euros a share. Isn't it a bit strange, or do you think?
Stefan, I don't mean to sound funny, but why haven't we heard from them, I think you need to ask them the question. I mean, I cannot speculate as to why they have not engaged with, you know, the second largest shareholder of the company, the largest minority shareholder, one of more than 5 years, and this despite our several attempts, all the work we have done ourselves, all the work that was done by Andra, which was then really at trying to assist the board in their mission to evaluate this offer. So in short, if you ask me for my personal opinion, it doesn't feel to me as the board members, whether it's the independents or not, have really fought hard for minority shareholders here. No.
That's a clear answer. With Spaarvarkens, we also did a webinar in the Sioen case, and in that moment we also criticized actually the role of the independent advisor. I think it was the Groof Peterkam in Sioen case, and also with Orange, the Groof Peterkam made the valuation, and we then made a case that it's actually a bit strange that, yeah, can you really say that the advisor is independent in this case? Because of course they get paid by Orange. Aren't there conflict of interest? Can we really speak about an independent advisor?
So let me share with you some research we've done with our legal advisors, because we've asked them to look at examples of situation in Belgium over the past few years where an independent expert valuation was required. And they've given us 6 examples. So I'll read them to you. So there was SAPEC in 2017, Two Valories in 18, PCB and Connect Group in 19, as you mentioned, Sioen, but also Zenitel in 2021. In all 6 cases, the range of the independent expert was below the price offered, each and every single time.
True.
And out of the 6 times, the Groof Peterkam was the independent advisor or the independent expert 4 times. I mean, we can't also escape the fact, or we can't help but notice that despite the business plan presented by the management of Orange Belgium being more ambitious than the consensus from analysts and what we ourselves had used, absolutely every single adjustment performed by the Groof Peterkam resulted in a price reduction. It was only downwards. So I will let everyone draw their own conclusion as to your question.
That's very clear. I also need to be independent in this discussion. Of course, we can have critique on the valuation report of the Groof Peterkam, but let us be honest, you also made a valuation report, and I think Andra did it for Polygon. We can also say the same, for example, in the case of Polygon, that perhaps Andra is too optimistic in their valuation because you have the same problem of interest actually in this case. So is the advisor really independent? Can we also say that Andra is actually independent in this case?
I think we have to be careful not to confuse 2 things. Andra do not have to be independent. And in fact, they are not independent. And no one has ever tried to pretend they were. They have been hired by Polygon to assist us. They're an advisor, and in fact, they are our advisor. And it's completely different from the role of the purportedly independent experts, which is supposed to be neutral in their mission to assist the board. So they are not and cannot be an advisor. And that's a big difference. And as you rightly pointed out, this independent expert is paid for by the bidder. So if you ask me if personally I believe it is healthy and conducive to independent valuations that the expert is paid by the bidder, my personal answer is no. That's a problem in my opinion, but unfortunately, this is how the regulation stands at the moment, and there's not much we can do about it. But what it means is that shareholders have to rely on their own work and their own conclusions, in my humble opinion.
That's very clear. I'm also seeing on social media some questions from people if this webinar will be, if we will if you can rewatch it. So normally we will put it, for the people who are listening on this moment, normally we will put this webinar online in 2 days, I think, or tomorrow perhaps even. And also for the journalists who are now watching, then you can actually watch the webinar again and also make your article about it. So I think that were my questions. I think that Pascal still has some questions.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and thanks, Nicholas, for all the answers that we've seen already. Now, if we go to the evolution and the development that we've seen over the last couple of days, yesterday morning there was a press release of Orange, and I think that the press release was very clear. This is our final offer. This is the price we are going to pay. We are not going to change. So what should I say now? There is not going to be any hope that we will get a higher price, it seems.
So that's interesting. So if you look at the press release issued yesterday by Orange SA, it actually is as follows. Orange does not intend to change the price of its offer. So again, as for the towers, it's vague and it's not a definitive commitment. They could have said Orange will not change the price of the offer, but they chose not to. I'm asking why. And you know what, by the way, I'll say this under the control of Simmons & Simmons, who are legal advisors and who are on the webinar, but making such a statement is not legally binding under Belgian takeover regulation. So should Orange have a change of heart for whatever reason and to pay more, this statement would not preclude them from doing so.
Yes.
I mean, for us, you know, look, I've been doing this for 24 years, and so this statement yesterday is unsurprisingly part of the usual tactics to pressure unhappy shareholders into tendering. Very short tender period, the minimum under the legal requirement, 2 weeks. The fact they've reserved the right to delist or apply for delisting, to be precise, even if they fail to reach the squeeze-out threshold. Ignoring the value of the towers, this purportedly, you know, final price. So, and I'll say this even more comfortably as I am French. I think shareholders should not allow themselves to be impressed by these big French corporates backed by the French state coming to Belgium and trying to buy a high quality Belgian company on the chip. Personal opinion.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. That was a very clear statement, and also a statement I can follow and I fully subscribe to. That is the truth, and people should not complain afterwards. They should act at the time they can act, and not complain afterwards, because that's often what's happening. Afterwards is too late. Now, all right, and I also can follow. You say we've not got the intention to increase the offer, which I think, I'm not a lawyer or a legal advisor, but I also think that I look at the language and I look at how it is stated, and indeed that is not really something that means a lot in my opinion. Now, Nicholas, things are what they are. What are the potential scenarios now? There are some good outcomes for the minority shareholders. There are some less good or even worse outcome for shareholders. What kind of scenarios maybe can we see now, you think?
I mean, you can have a multiplicity of scenarios. It's funny because I've been asked by a few people in the past few days whether actually Orange SA could walk away in the face of the resistance. Again, I speak under the control of our legal advisors, but our understanding is that at this stage, Orange SA cannot just walk away like this. And remember, the offer is not conditional on any minimum acceptance threshold. There are no competition authorities approvals to get. We know there is a material adverse change clause, and my understanding is that that's the only way that would allow Orange SA to walk away if, and I invite everyone to read the prospectus, but there are conditions about the Bell 20 Proximus share price and Telenet share price not being down by more than a certain percentage with certain conditions, 15%. And that is not an automatic walk away. That would just give them, under certain circumstances, the right to change their mind. They could, Pascal, but they have 52%, almost 53% of the company. So, if it is they would one day come back.
Yeah, indeed. From time to time, we see these financial transactions whereby there is a link to some things that should not happen because otherwise then the transaction may not go through. But I don't think there is a big risk here. Perhaps we can continue this question in a while, in a couple of minutes, with the people at Deminor, what they see as potential outcome. I would still like to ask you something, Nicholas, of what you said before. I don't know whether you know the imaginary figure Calimero. Have you ever heard of Calimero? In France or in the UK? No?
Sorry,
I guess not.
no.
No. That's probably
No,
something we had in Belgium only. That is someone who was always complaining and so on. I still want to continue about that because you said, look.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you still.
Yes,
you do know.
That's
very good. So then.
Yeah, there's a little bird.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Then I'm very happy. Then it's not typically a Belgian thing because from time to time, when I came back from London in 2012, when we had the Olympics in London, I got back home here in Flanders, in Belgium. But from time to time, unfortunately, I think there is a bit too much a feeling of Calimero here in Belgium or in Flanders, that people say, well, they are big and they can always do what they want, and we are small and we always have to listen and we never can do something that we want. And I think that's a shame. I think people should come up for their rights. Nicholas, is that something that we have here in Belgium, that there are big guys trying to take over a company and neglecting the interests of the minority shareholders, or do you see this elsewhere as well?
No, I would say unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for Belgium, it's something that we've seen in a number of countries, especially since the COVID crisis and sell-off last year. I mean, there's been a number of examples in France, Germany, Spain, to name a few. But this does not make it any more acceptable.
Is it perhaps a thing that we have seen in the past more, and that it was more accepted in the past, and that things are changing, you think? That minority shareholders, for instance, you also said in the beginning, we've always been exercising our rights. So I think that means that you've always been voting on annual meetings. We see that shareholders become more active, at least they are voting. They do something, they tell something, they show their minds. Is that something that we haven't seen a while ago, and that's a thing of the past, you think?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. And as I've said in a previous answer, I think it's very important that shareholders be vigilant, and we believe that they should not allow themselves to be impressed. And as you know, mandated Deminor to work on this situation. And so I would not want to steal their thunder, because I believe that there's a lot more they would like to say about this.
Good. Well, to everyone in the call, I hope we still have some time for a Q&A with Deminor. But Stefan, I would like to ask you to announce the people at Deminor, because it's your contacts at Deminor. So perhaps you can very shortly or just introduce the people and ask whether there's anything they have to say. I must say, I got to know Deminor, that must have been in 1998, when we had the case of the takeover of Sarah and ABB, which were big banks and insurance companies in Belgium, and they were taken over by Kredietbank, KB. And originally, I thought that cooperative shareholders, or the shareholders of Sarah, which was a cooperative company, so not a listed bank, originally they didn't get anything at all. And then, well, I guess Deminor got involved in that case as well, together with Modri Kamen. I may be wrong, but that's like 20 years, I guess, that Deminor has been in business, and that we've seen Deminor getting involved in cases like these. So perhaps, Stefan, if you could introduce guys of Deminor.
Yeah, sure. And if you look to the history of Deminor, it's really great to see how they actually started to defend the minority shareholders in the past, and how they really started small with going to the annual meetings of shareholders. And then, yeah, they did something in Belgium quite unique for that time. I think it's already 20 or 3.
Stefan, I must say they are not quite unique yet, because you've got Spaarvarkens.be now as defending the rights of the minority shareholders. So we're doing this.
We try to be competition then. But yeah, on this moment, Pierre Alexis Leonard, he's also in the call. And yeah, I would like to introduce
are you
him.
hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you perfectly.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you, Stefan. And I'm glad to be here with you. And maybe if I can just first, Guillaume, do you want to add something about the valuation of the Growth Petercam, maybe first?
On this moment, Guillaume, yeah.
If
no,
it's
that's
specific.
fine. Can you hear me or not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. No, I just want to come back on the from a pure valuation standpoint. We find it a little bit odd that the independent expert discarded the comparable transaction method, which is the only valuation method that landed on a higher price. They estimated 27 euros per share. So it's a little bit paradoxical, according to us, because this method is really the best method to understand the value of a company. The value of a company in a case of a transaction. Comparable, transaction method represents the transactions in the same sector for minority stakes, for the same sector, same geography, etc. And that method takes into account the synergies that may arise from the acquisitions by the company, and sometimes the parent company. So not going too much into the specifics of the DCF and all the financial specifics of the price of the pricing, but we think that part of the value of the synergies should definitely be shared with the minority shareholders.
Yeah, I don't know if I can ask a question about it. I was reading an analysis of ING, of a great analyst. It's called David Vakman. I think he was also talking about the payment that Orange Belgium pays to Orange. I think it's 17 or 19 million euros a year to Orange, so they can use the brand name even. Isn't that also, are you talking also about those synergies? I think Vakman was talking about 4 or 5 euros. That could have an impact of 4 or 5 euros a share, but
yeah, we can name a lot of different different types of synergies. One of those is also the totem the possibility to put all the towers into this vehicle. You know, there are many things that you can do in terms also of financing. When you have 100% of the company, you can do whatever you want. So there are a lot of synergies, and synergies should be shared with shareholders. And that's I think it's a very important point. There are a lot of different synergies, and once again, we are not going to go into the specifics because it's quite difficult from a financial point of view to understand everything and to model everything. But definitely there are many synergies, and yeah, we are from. I mean, we believe that, you know, these synergies should be definitely shared with the minority shareholders.
Yes, there are also some questions from our viewers and the listeners that say, for instance, can we do something by perhaps going to the annual meeting of Orange Belgium, which is on the 5th of May? That's still 3 weeks from here, but can something be arranged that minority shareholders get together and get something on the agenda of the annual meeting?
Yes, Pascal, can I just make a short conclusion and my opinion of this case, and then I will answer to your question. And to answer to your first question, we have been active in the conflict resolutions between shareholders since 30 years. And unfortunately, I wasn't working on the case you mentioned a few minutes ago, because I have been working for Deminor now for a little bit more than 8 years. But as you know, Deminor has been mandated by Polygon to defend their interest as a minority shareholder. And it's not a secret. We consider that a price of €22 underestimate the value of Orange Belgium, but even more, disregard the interest of the minority shareholders. In our opinion, Orange France takeover is a very opportunistic approach when the stock market is clearly impacted by the pandemic crisis. And you could consider that the premium offered by Orange France is significant. But if you compare it to the share price right before the pandemic crisis, you will say that it's only a premium of 6%, so it's not so significant. And if you put together the low price, the authoritarian or arrogant attitude of Orange France, they say we do not intend to increase the price. If you stay, if you don't tender your shares, the liquidity of the shares will be strongly affected in the future. And if you add to that the particular timing of the publication of the prospectus, because just before the Easter holidays, and the tight timetable for accepting or not the offer, just 2 weeks, and it's just 2 weeks is the minimum required by law. That could be between 2 weeks and 10 weeks. So we have the feeling, and you might have also the feeling, that there is a willingness to incite minority shareholder to take a hasty decision which could be contrary to their interest. That's our opinion, and in 90% of our case, we work for minority shareholders, and in 89% of cases where it's question of selling a stake, we encounter the same situation for listed or not listed companies, that there is a low price and you have to accept this low price because after that could be nothing. That's the argument that we often encounter in our case. And maybe just a similar situation we encountered in the past in listed company. Remember in 2015, we helped Spadel minority shareholders to block the squeeze out. And the situation was quite similar because there was a particular assumption in the fairness opinion, a quite authoritarian attitude of the bidder, who was a major shareholder, and some kind of fear strategy. You have to accept or the life will be worse in the future.
So that's about, Pierre-Alexis, that's about the case of Spadel, the water company which is selling sparkling and still water and lemonade in Belgium, and which is listed on Euronext Brussels.
Yes, what I want to say that if you check today, Spadel is still a listed company, and shareholders have seen the share price increased twofold since then. I don't mean that the situation will be the same in the Orange case. I just mean that sometimes you have to be confident in the future and not accept an unbalanced offer. And in our opinion today, it's an unbalanced offer. So as a conclusion, I will answer to the questions, to some question after, but I would say keep contacting us. And the more shareholders will decide to refuse the bid, the lesser the liquidity of the share will be affected in the future. And so if you share our opinion, if you share the opinion of Polygon, if you share the opinion of Spaarvarkens, please, you can send me an email, orange@deminor.com, or you can also fill the contact form on our website. So thank you for your attention. And the first question, I think, what's related to the general meeting, which is planned in a few weeks, and the question was, could we add some points? Could we itemize some points at the agenda? Is it true? That was the first question.
Yes, yeah. For instance, I would think that that may be something which could work. Huh? No.
You can add points at the agenda of a general meeting of a listed company if you hold 3% of the shares. So two options. First, for example, you can federate shareholders, and the shareholders holds 3%.
I know a shareholder who's got 5.3% already. You may know him as well.
Yes, maybe I have an idea, but you can ask to. They can't answer to question today, so you can ask that in the future. But you will see in the coming weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, let's hope some minority shareholders attend this annual meeting. We can't say whether it will be in Brussels or whether it will be online, but that could be a good thing. There are several brokers. We've seen also at spaarvarkens.be where you can ask the broker for free to put you on the list so that you can attend the shareholders meeting as well, and we can ask a couple of questions regarding, for instance, the independent board members. I've got a couple of questions for them as well, or regarding, for instance, the fee that is pretty high that Orange Belgium apparently has to pay to Orange. I would say if the fee is that high, well, perhaps it makes more sense to just go back to the name Mobistar, because Mobistar was a very good brand name in Belgium, and if they could save millions a year by just switching to this name, well, I would do that. And that's at least a point or a question I could ask, because even if I haven't got enough shares to put it on the agenda, I can still be a naughty shareholder and ask questions at the Q&A of the annual meeting. That is something I could do, and I suggest that other minority shareholders do the same. I don't see a lot of questions in the chat, so perhaps we could already start concluding this webinar. I just checked, and indeed in April '98 it was that Deminor apparently played a role in the Sera case. So where in April '98 already, that's even a bit earlier than I thought, when Kredietbank was buying Sera. So there originally, and it's of all times, that's what we see here today as well. Originally, Kredietbank was trying to give zero extra value to the corporative shareholders of Sera. In the end, after the work of Deminor on the one hand and Modricamen on the other hand, they succeeded in getting much more value for the shareholders. And I would say a fair value for the shareholders, because those shareholders have taken risk. Those shareholders have put their money in a company, and I think it's not more than right that the rights of the shareholders that are still there, and that they look after the rights of the shareholders. I think that quite a lot of people in this call know that Orange Belgium is a great company. I would say it's a great company. I'm a customer. It would be a bit unfortunate to say farewell to this company at a very low level. So the level should be about right. That is my opinion, and it is also the opinion of all the members of Spaarvarkens.be. And I must say we have been talking to a lot of people already, and a lot of people are happy that at least we've got organizations like Deminor and Spaarvarkens.be, and we have some shareholders like Polygon who are a bit, who are asking questions and who don't take everything what is told by majority shareholders of companies, whether it's listed companies or unlisted companies. So I'm very happy that everybody participated in this call, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done. The recording of this webinar will be available, and I think we can do that, for instance, on the YouTube site of Spaarvarkens.be. So we will do that in the next couple of days or as soon as possible. Perhaps, Stefan, there is a word you want to say to everyone who is in this call?
No, not really. I'm going to put I will just put everything on YouTube, I think, tonight already, so people can already watch it, I think, around 12 o'clock. So normally it will be ready.
Good.
And Stefan, Pascal, thank you very much for the organization. And I have heard that no, we are competitor, because you say that there is Spaarvarkens and Deminor. So good luck to Spaarvarkens, and or maybe we are partners.
I take more partners.
Very pleased to hear. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Bye. 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 Evening. Bye.